as the title says, neoconservatism is just a name for American imperialism. And I know there have been discussions about whether it's a good thing or not. Neoconservatism, I mean. If it is American imperialism, then we have to ask ourselves whether imperialism is a good thing or not. And if, let's assume that we are, unlikely though that is, agreed that imperialism is a good thing. Let's assume that. Why would we think that? We would think it means that we're getting better, we're getting stronger, we're getting more, having more territory. But then it also means that we are putting ourselves in a position of failing as an empire and suffering from imperial decline, because it seems to me that becoming an empire is kind of like being born. So the moment you are born, you begin to die. But if you never were an empire, then all you have to do is defend your nation. Can there be such a thing as an imperial nation? Yes, if you look at China and America and Britain. But then we know there are different kinds of empires. There are land empires and there are sea empires. America, Britain, and Spain are sea empires. And this means they run in a different way from land empires. And the land empires we will have heard of would be the Roman Empire, the China, Russia, Iran. So it basically means that you as a nation comprise more than one tribe. A good example would be Belgium. There are the Walloons and the Spanish, and it's a really small country, but they are two distinct peoples who speak different languages and sometimes don't quite agree with each other. I'm a little bit vague about about Belgium, but I'm saying technically even quite small countries can be considered empires. If you look at Britain, that once controlled Ireland and even a bit of France. So empires, the borders of empires can expand and shrink according to their ability of the armed forces, of the imperial armed forces to expand or even shrink, as the case may be. So this is the nature of empire, that it is logically and necessarily multicultural and multilingual and multinational. So I repeat, if you're an empire, you will have within your nation more than one tribe with more than one people. They don't have to necessarily look different. I mean, it's enough for say, the Welsh to say that they're different from the English or the Scottish or the Irish. So it is really language that is the marker of what tribe you're in. So what are the advantages of imperialism? The disadvantages, as we know, are war and the expense of maintaining empire, because you'll see that what you have in effect is, different countries and different peoples who understandably might resent you conquering them and making them pay taxes. You might make them loyal citizens if you make it clear uh, that they are doing better under you than under their previous national leaders. So that's not necessarily the end of the world that you once conquered people, because eventually, after a few generations, they might be happy to have been conquered by you. So it's not a disaster, but obviously, if you have an empire, you need to be forever thinking about how to keep it together. Otherwise, it will fall apart. In China, it is called statecraft. And it tried to be meritocratic in that it had examinations for the civil service. They were competitive examinations, and many people saw it as prestigious to pass those exams and be received into court and be one of the advisors to the emperor. But the point was that it was based on merit. I don't know the curriculum, but the idea was that the best people got in, and it wasn't about who you knew. You literally had to pass those exams, and if you were stupid but rich and well connected, too bad. The advantages of empire would be ease of transport, ease of communication, um, and probably some pride in imperial possessions and imperial glory. And obviously, if you wage a few successful imperial wars, you get the good feeling about having done so. Your history books will reflect this. What are the disadvantages of empire? Well, if you don't run your empire properly, people will hate you, and maybe even your own people will hate you and complain that you're not treating them properly. And this is the position that Westerners have. They feel that their own government are not treating the people who have been there for longest properly. But there's always a temptation, I think, to um, do the equivalent of attracting new customers. So, and ignoring the old customers. The equivalent of this can be seen on X, where uh, those who have an account on X can host spaces. And the goal of hosting a space would be, to have a large space and lots of people coming to participate or listen to your spaces. And a lot of people, a lot of these hosts of spaces, well, they would have varying degrees of etiquette in that. Well, um, my practice is to make sure that a subject is discussed properly before moving on to the next. And what I find very annoying is people who will just break off and say hi to the newest arrival, or ask how they are, what they have to say, and most of the time they have nothing to say. They've just arrived, they don't know what's going on, and by the time you go back to the previous speaker, the speaker will have forgotten what they were trying to say, and people would have got bored and left. And so it's just a dumb, degenerate thing to do. But I suppose my practice is to make sure that the subject is discussed properly without stupid, unnecessary interruptions. But then there are these people who want to be genial hosts and want to welcome everyone, even though they are, brain dead retards, because they just want lots of people to listen to them, and can't make the distinction between chitter chatter and a proper dialogue coming to a conclusion. Hello, Brown's boy. Yes, so yeah, you're very welcome here. Let me make sure I've said all I wanted to say about imperialism. So we've talked about um, the benefits of imperialism, and I think we should now talk about the disbenefits of imperialism. I did cover that earlier by saying having an empire is like being born. It means that once you are born, you are sure to die. But if you are never born, if you were never alive, then you will never be dead. And the minimum of what you can be doing is to defend your own territory and your own people, keeping the identity of your people, and inevitably will we think of the Jews, right? That they are the smallest group of people with the most interesting religion and the most copycatted religion in the whole wide world, because they are supposed to be God's chosen people. But even Israel, the ancient kingdom of Israel, had 12 tribes. And the different tribes had different specialities. You could think of them as different departments. Let me look it up. What the 12 tribes of Israel were about. So the point of those different tribes is that they formed a nation. So we know about the Levite and the Cohens. Okay, so let me go through them. Let's see. The tribe of Reuben, known as the firstborn, often associated with strength and leadership. Simeon, known for his loyalty and strength, often associated with justice and protection. Levi, the tribe of Levi, was dedicated to religious service, including priesthood and temple worship. Judah was a tribe of the Messiah and was known for its strength and leadership. Dan was known for its skill in warfare and its ability to unite diverse groups of people. Naphtali was known for its beauty and its association with deer, symbolizing grace and gentleness. Gad was a warrior tribe known for its strength and its ability to survive and thrive. Asher was known for its prosperity and its association with olive trees, symbolizing peace and abundance. Issachar was known for its wisdom and ability to understand and interpret complex ideas. 10. Zebulun was known for its business acumen and its ability to create new and innovative ideas. Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, each formed their own tribes, representing the continuation of Joseph's lineage. Benjamin was known for his loyalty and his ability to support his tribe and the wider nation. The significance of the tribes: religious identity, land ownership, cultural diversity, social structure. I mean, I see that there are repetitions, but if you can think of them in terms of Department of Trade, the armed forces, the priesthood, the Department of Culture, etc., then I think you'll see that these 12 tribes are meant to do different things for for the nation of Israel. And when you are small and compact, it's probably easier for you to form a cohesive identity because you all know each other, and you know, but it is hard to keep a very vast empire under control. In China, there is an expression called that says the emperor is far away. So you may call on him to defend you if the local officials are being oppressive, but he is far away and you can't really do much. And obviously, if enough people suffer enough injustice, they will rebel, and there will be problems of rebellion and secession and um, regionalism and separatism. And of course, you don't want to do that because it would be a bad thing for an empire, in the same way that a divorce is a bad thing for a marriage. So there are advantages and disadvantages, but I would say on the whole that we are beneficiaries of a global empire, in that if we like traveling, if we speak English, we can easily communicate with somebody on the other side of the world at any time, and it's free or virtually free. And if there's anything about our age, it is the ease of communication. Now, I want to deal with what Brown's boy has raised about the tactics or the composition of those spaces. So he talks about gatekeepers. He says they are confirmed actors on YouTube paid to push divisive tactics. They'll even show up in pairs and create fake arguments in an attempt to control other people's panels and gatekeep conversations. Well, I think we've all kind of done that. If we want to argue with somebody, we would like somebody else in the space to stick up for us. But what I find the most infuriating is men who allow their co-host to be some dumb bitch, really. I mean, it would be some dumb bitch with a voice that indicates that she is of childbearing age, and you can tell that it keeps the men in order. They, because there's some dumb bitch as a co-host, they won't say anything much. They won't say what they really mean about feminism, and even when the men are actually just discussing something important, the dumb bitch in question will feel will get bored because she doesn't know what's going on, and then she'll interrupt and she'll be rude and she'll want the attention of the men again. And it's probable that it's not even deliberate. It's people think, oh well, I might as well make a female a co-host as a male, and it might even give your space prestige because you've got some bird co-hosting your space with you, and a lot of men are easily seduced by that, and either consciously or unconsciously allow this dumb bitch to gatekeep and control the conversation, and they won't even realize it. They think how clever they are to get some sexy sounding women to co-host their space with them, and to be associated even at um, such a distant tangential level is enough to satisfy their vanity. So I think a lot of it is to do with just stupidity, not understanding uh, their own psychology, and maybe sometimes it's deliberate. They just want to think that if I have a female co-host, I'm actually more high status than some man who can only get another male to co-host. That's probably what they're thinking. Of course, I can't prove any of this, but this is my theory. And sadly, um, because of this kind of thinking amongst men, they don't really get to talk about anything much because the female co-host will get bored and will want attention and will say stupid things or giggle and talk about nothing. And this is sad and uh, obstructive to having it to getting a decent conversation going. So, what I suggest is for men to think more carefully. But maybe um, a lot of men are not really thinking in terms of political activism. It's more about shooting the shit and hanging out with, people of a similar view. It's about being in the same echo chamber. Um, be you a group of Jews or a group of anti-Semites or a group of Muslims or a group of Islamophobes. They're not really thinking, they're just behaving like cattle. They say that they see, a bunch of people who broadly support their worldview and they just go to it. And then I guess they try to fit in and don't think anything much about it. And if you try to discuss something a little bit demanding, they'll just get bored and, you know, make toilet noises and um, distract. So, how are we to get round this problem? It's just to, always find the best people around and associate yourself with them. I think that's my methodology. I mean, I like to think my spaces are well run because I don't tolerate people who talk nonsense, and if they do, I will tell them so. And so I don't get my time wasted, even if they don't wish to associate with me. Well, that will be a good thing. I do wish to separate myself from the stupid people who can't follow an argument, and I will continue to try crawling up the hierarchy of people who consider themselves to be intellectuals and therefore capable of discussing my ideas. Um, so Brown's boy says, I heard neoconservatives are using communist Marxist tactics to get their Trojan horse movement in people's minds. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because Caleb Morpin, who used to identify as communist and now calls himself an innovationist with the Centre for Political Innovation, is complaining that Antifa is targeting him. So, it's obvious really that Antifa is basically uh, a state a state-hired mob to disrupt the meetings of people whose ideas they dislike, because Antifa usually is associated with disrupting the the meetings of the so-called far right, and now they are doing it to the so-called far left. Um, and I suppose I think Do we need to have these meetings? Because it's a lot of trouble. And I mean, yes, of course, we do need to, go out and meet each other and show that we have a common purpose. But I'm saying, what they're trying to suppress are narratives and solutions. And I'm saying the solutions are quite simple. Okay, my solution is really very simple. And I think it can be understood by, any reasonably bright child who takes an interest in these things. If you think the law is an ass, if you think lots of the law is an ass, then you have to ask yourself about the correctitude of your current political orthodoxy. And if you don't agree with transing the kids or gay marriage or no fault divorce or it's usually, they're usually associated. Social conservatism is associated with supporting marriage, and liberalism is associated with undermining the institution of marriage. So I'm making it very simple for you. So it's the people who think marriage should be supported because they want to have children and grandchildren and descendants, and the people, usually gay, who don't care. So either you want to go through this process of finding a spouse and being a married parent and hopefully parenting good children, or you'd rather not try. And therefore, you'd be gay, you'd be a non parent, you'd be a cat lady, and then you're going to die childless. And I'm saying it's pretty easy to work out which group you want to support if you care about your country, your society, and posterity. And by posterity, I mean your descendants that you will never meet. If you think in the long term, you will be thinking of these abstract ideas, such as justice and posterity and descendants and the national interest, the public interest, and morality, patriarchy, that sort of thing. So if you're capable of forming opinions on these abstract ideas, then I think you will be inclined to want solutions to problems that face you and maybe your children, and certainly your grandchildren if they are not solved now. And perhaps the spectre of another world war might hurry some people into being prepared to entertain more radical ideas. But let it be said that my ideas are legal, peaceful, and fundamentally actually quite easy to do. You only have to discuss my ideas with somebody in real life and see where it goes. And really, it just boils down to asking people in your family and friendship circle what you think religion is for. I think you can remember this simple little idea. What do you think religion is for? This should be the subject of any serious conversation after complaining about the government. I'm sure there are many complaints about the government just by talking to people on the train, in the bus stop, in the pub. So I don't see what the problem is. And once enough people ask that question, even if they can't themselves come up with a sensible answer, eventually it will get to the answer that everybody dreads to discuss what religion. But anyway, you could be part of the people, part of the seekers of a solution to the problems you have. At the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We are trying to get ourselves better government. So I invite you to consider how things would be if, let's say, we survive World War III, we survive the bombing and the radiation, and we get to ask ourselves what we could have done to prevent it. Well, I mean, obviously, we didn't prevent it in this situation because it has happened, but we would have to consider the theory of what could have prevented it. And ultimately, it must be to have a ruling class that is wise and working in a national interest and not liable to pick wars that they can't win. The British, of all people, should know what it is that they, in fact, lack and still lack. But I'm sure the problem of picking fights that you can't win because you are a declining empire and you're afraid of another rising empire rising up behind you. It's actually an old term, the Thucydides trap. And this goes back to the Peloponnesian War, when Athens and Sparta destroyed each other and eventually became a province of the Roman Empire. So what I propose is not actually the end of the Anglo-Saxon Empire. I'm saying run it in a different way so that the people you rule will not be so angry and discontented, including the original people, the Anglo-Saxons. So before I end this, I will say again that a different and better form of imperial governance is required to keep the imperial subjects of the American empire less discontented and less alarmed at how things are going. And by showing you care about them, you will once again win their trust and win their trust for long enough for you to correct yourself. And this is really not that simple. I mean, not that difficult, and is in fact quite simple. You show in a convincing way that you care enough to change your ways and correct yourself, and you have this conversation that is intended to reassure all the alarmed people that doubt your sanity or goodwill. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you will do as I ask you, which is to ask anyone whom you meet to complain about the government what they think might solve the problem of bad government, if not a new official moral system. Thank you for your attention.